Hey, Jerry Fetta here, back with another Finance Friday. We're going to talk more about the Gospel of Wealth with Andrew Carnegie, a secret that I see in his childhood, teenagehood, that I think we all can mimic today to build more wealth. Stay tuned. Hey, Jerry Fetta here, CEO of Philanthro Wealth. So I've been doing these Finance Fridays and talking to you about the Gospel of Wealth by Andrew Carnegie. And we're in the part of the book right now where we're going through his autobiography. And there was something that I read this last chunk I went through, and we're still in his childhood, right? So we kind of went through his childhood growing up in Dunfermline, Scotland. He's now moved to the United States, right? Moving to the United States, we talked about before, they actually worsened their economic condition to get here. Right? And I think that speaks volumes about the mindset that they have of coming to America, what it really is like to be here versus somewhere else. So I think that's a really important thing for our culture. I see a lot of, being critical of our country and hating on it, even though we live here. And it's like, guys, this is like our team. Like, you get on the team or get off the team, right? There's other people who obviously want to come in who would love to be here. But I don't want to talk about that today. What I want to talk about is when he moved to America, right? So in the book, he's, 13 years old, somewhere around that age. He's here. He did a little bit of school. And his very first job, when I looked at this, like I read this book before, when I looked at this recently and I read it another time, okay, like fresh, I noticed something with his first job that I didn't notice before. And it's because at the time, I was in a different position in my own life and in my own business. And so I wasn't thinking with this. I've now gone through some different stuff and I saw this. His very first job, first was a sales job. He was going to be selling stuff with basically like little trinkets and objects. His mom didn't like that job. She thought it was demeaning, right? So he moves into another job. This next job, he is working as a communicator for business owners. What does that mean? As a communicator, he is delivering messages, right? So he works for an entrepreneur, a successful business owner, and he is responsible for taking the mail or the message or the communication and bringing that to the other one. He was a messenger boy. And so when I first read this, I didn't think much of it, but as I started to build my own success in business and finances, because the first time I read this was a while back, right? It was not a recent reading. And so newly, when I read this, I understood the power of if you're 13 years old, okay, I want you to think about this. You're 13 years old and you are working for some of the most powerful people in your city, relaying their communications back and forth, right? Imagine what kinds of conversations you were privy to. Imagine the experiences that you had working for high-level business owners. You were their right-hand person when it came to communication. That's a very important job. And so there's a couple elements to this is number one, like the amount of exposure that gives you to the business world, right? What are they actually saying? What are they actually thinking? What are the conversations like? But number two, he is being seen and relied upon by very powerful people at a very young age. How much trust do I have to give you my communications and I know you're going to get it to whoever I'm directing it to? Maybe it's the CEO of another company. Maybe it's my attorney. Maybe it's a politician, right? Maybe it's a lawsuit. Maybe it's a business negotiation. And I am seeing you, giving you my communication. You're now taking it to the other party and you're being seen and giving it to them. You don't think by the end of this, they were starting to get to know that little Carnegie boy? Right? Like, oh, this little Carnegie boy. Like, he grows up, he starts building his reputation at the age of 13 in the business community as a reliable source, as somebody that they can rely upon to get communication from point A to point B. Hey, what's up? Jerry here. I just wanted to give you another reminder. Grab my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. It's going to be one of the best books you have ever read on finance. I can promise you that you're going to love it. It's also a free offer. So if you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, you can get that now. Okay. Now, the other thing that I saw here was that because of this exposure, some of his employers and the people he was working with in this job, they opened up their libraries to him and the other children, right? Like he worked with people that they understood the value of education. And so they gave him exposure to their libraries and their books, and he got to study material, again, from the mind of a business person. So I don't want you to think about school like your history teacher may or may not be successful in their own life. Their job isn't that. Their job is to teach you what the school districts want them to teach you about history, right? But if you're not in that position, you're a business owner, you're possibly successful, you're possibly wealthy, you have all of these different viewpoints and experiences. You know, if you're watching this and you're a business owner, you know what I mean. You know what books to read. You know if somebody needs help with something, what to give them, what books to prescribe them, who they need to go learn from, who they need to go study, right? And so the library of a successful business owner in this time period was probably one of the greatest gifts you could give a child that was willing, that was interested in work, that was interested in success. Right? There's a lot of other kids that Andrew Carnegie was working with where all they cared about was candy. Right? There's literally that part in the chapter where he's like, the other kid, they'd spend all their money on candy. Right? There was one kid that even was saying he had a creature living in him that craved sugar and made him go get candy. Right? So you can see there is a difference with Carnegie, and I think, again, this is part of his childhood. He doesn't get into the other boys he's working with, where they're from, where they grew up. But because we know Carnegie's backstory, we know that he understands the struggle. We know that he saw his parents working. We know that he had to work. We know that he understood they were going without. We know that he studied people like William Wallace and Robert the Bruce, and he cared about freedom, and he cared about being great, and he cared about integrity. And so when he came to the point of working, I think he had a different foundation than some other 13-year-old boy that maybe grew up in America and didn't have those experiences. Right? Like, I think the more you struggle as a kid, the better off you are as an adult. I truly believe that with all my heart. Right? And so you can see this difference. Like, okay, you give the average child a library of books from a successful business owner. How interested are they really to jump in and dive into those? I mean, really, like, is that like the thing where they're like, yeah, I want to learn this? Probably not for most kids. Right? So there's an element of weird there, but I don't think it's not innate, like only Carnegie has this. I think a lot of this is due to his upbringing. Now, the other thing he starts getting into is starting to learn about, some of these different religious doctrines, political doctrines, historical things. Like, these are some of the materials in the books. You can see that this starts to shape him, right? This starts to shape who he is today. In modern history, we read back and he's this well-read, benevolent, hardworking, intelligent, crafty, right? And it's like a lot of these elements are in the material he's reading already. And the library thing was so impactful to him. He not only acknowledges it in the book, but one of the things he did was he started libraries. Through his wealth, through his benevolence, he planted libraries all across the country because he wanted to give the same gift to other children. Okay. Now, there's another thing I noticed too, is that Carnegie, even at this age of 12, 13 years old, he's a leader, right? So the kids, like, they're spending all of their money. There's like a common pool of funds that he puts together for some of the different jobs that they share in. And he kind of solves the issue of like kids going broke and getting money that maybe they weren't entitled to and spending it on candy and different stuff. He actually orchestrates, like, let's all put it in a pool together and let's manage it together. And we're going to have a treasurer. Like, this is at 13 years old, guys. So this is like, I can see already some of the remnants of, okay, if I was, looking at, okay, how do I take a kid and turn him into a Carnegie? What steps would I be taking? Right? And this is something that if you're a parent, I think this is important to look at with your own kids. What are you really teaching your child if from the ages of 10 to 20 years old, they're not able to work, they're learning stuff in school like they don't understand, they're not being given difficulty, they're being sheltered from everything? You're creating a weak bum. And we see that in today's modern generations. We see kids that turn into 20, 22 years old, and they can't work, they can't hold a job. They already know they're not going to be able to do well financially. Like, they're going into the world knowing these things. Why? Because we took away the hard stuff. We took away the work. We took away the struggle. We took away the danger. We took away the risk. All of the stuff that's true and real to life, we've sheltered them from for a decade or 2 decades, and they're just unprepared to handle it when they come out. And so with Carnegie, we're not just talking about somebody who's prepared to handle it. We're talking about somebody who excelled beyond probably almost every other human being at that time. Why? Why is that? How do we look at those remnants of what he did, how he was raised, and use that with our own kids and use that in our own lives? Right? I want you to be honest, like if you're reading the book with me or you're hearing what I'm saying, how much of what he's doing are you even willing to go through as an adult right now? Reading a book, for example, when is the last time you really read a book? Right? When is the last time you worked in a job that maybe you didn't love? Right? There's a whole story of him working in the factories with his dad. Like he actually went to work in the factories with his dad at the age of 10, 11 years old. And he's in charge of controlling fires and making sure enough steam gets through the factory and sleeping in the factory and coming home at midnight. Guys, this is a 10 or 11-year-old kid. I think we drastically underestimate what we're capable of. And we coddle ourselves and we coddle others and we foster weakness and we create an environment that's not real to life. And then when life comes in and it hits hard and there's challenges and there's adversity, we don't know what to do because we've never practiced adversity. We've avoided it our whole lives. Our kids have never practiced adversity because we protected them from it our whole lives. So I think Carnegie's, like adolescence, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, it really paints the picture. And I want to go back to what I said at the very beginning, right? Like when you're building wealth, I always talk about investing. And one of the things that's unique in my philosophy with investing is I don't think the first thing you should invest in is assets, right? I think the first thing you should invest in is you. You are the asset. Right? And so if you look at Carnegie's scope, like the first thing he learned how to work. Right? Like he learned how to do physical labor, work. Right? That got rid of the laziness. There's a lot of us as kids or adults that are super lazy today. That's the first thing I would say, this is something I've been talking about for years. And so I'm realizing it lines up with Gospel of Wealth in this chapter. Number 1, let me whiteboard this out. Because this is a really good sequence on, what should I be focused on right now, Jerry? Right? Okay, let's whiteboard this out. What's the sequence here? Where should you be investing? Number 1, he invested in his ability actually to dream. You see this in the earlier chapters where he talks about the romanticism of growing up in Scotland, having castles and kings and queens and dukes and all this stuff, right? So he actually focused in his early childhood on his ability to dream, imagine, and see the ideals and all this kind of stuff. This is very important. Most people have lost this. Okay. The second thing was his ability to work, right? He was working. He went right to work with his parent and he learned to work. And so I think that this is imperative because there's a balance of the dreaming and the working, and the dreaming and the working. And where people go wrong is where they gravitate only toward one side and avoid the other, right? I just want to dream. I just want to daydream. I just want to imagine. Right? And it's like I can't confront reality and I can't do work. My dreams aren't going to come true. Let's flip it to the other side. Okay, it's all about the hustle. It's all about the grind. It's all about the work, but there's no dream. There's no better ideal. What are we working towards? There's no goal. If I go to that side, life becomes very, scorched earth and dry and cold and boring. Right? So he goes into dreaming. He learns how to work. He then learns about communication and networking. Okay, this is the communication job. He worked with wealthy business owners as the messenger, right? So he's learning about communication. He's also networking. He's being known, okay? And I thought this was funny, this word network, right? So we're learning to work. When you're learning to work, you're probably not going to be earning very much. And this is, again, like a mindset shift. And I think this is where we've gone wrong with kids not working. Now, I'm not telling you let's open sweatshops for children, but I'm saying that when you have adults doing jobs that should be done by teenagers, those jobs have to pay more because the adults have more obligations. Okay? Low skill work, low value work gets low pay. If you're not capable of very much, you're not going to get paid very much. And so there's a phase where you're just learning how to be able to work, because if you don't know how to work, you're not going to get high skill labor. You're not going to get high paying jobs. There's not a single job on the planet that's going to pay you well if you don't know how to work. And so that's something that you focus on. Now, network, right? What is networking? Right? We think about this. So you go to the parties and the groups and the gatherings and you meet people, but why? Okay? So you can find work. When I network, it's to find clients. When I network, it's to find people I'm going to do business with. I don't go there just to be like, I want to know more about strangers and see pictures of their baby. No, I'm not interested in that at all. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm looking for, how do I meet great people that I can expand with? How do I find clients? How do I find employees? How do I find business partners? That's why I network. Work is in the word network. That's the reason you network, is to expand your work, right? And it's like your net. You're catching the work. You're casting the net out and you're finding, what do I come back with? You're going to events and you're meeting people and you're being known and you're being seen. And if you don't know how to work, there's nothing you're going to catch in that net. Okay, so he invests in networking third. And I think this is an important point we should be focused on too. Okay, so I have my dreams. I know how to work. I'm networking. Okay, now he starts learning, literacy, and education, right? Because of the networking, he starts learning. Now you might say, well, Jerry, you should learn before you network. I'm not telling you never learn, but I'm telling you the stuff you learn is based on who you know. If you're not capable of anything major yet, and you don't know anyone important yet, and nobody knows you that's important yet, the learning you're going to do is not going to be as rich compared to learning you're going to do from very high level people. You see what I'm saying there? So if you know high level people, there's more wisdom they're going to be able to share with you. Where does that come from? Well, that comes from the networking. Where does the networking come from? Well, from being able to work and be valuable. So you go to those conversations, you can actually offer something. And then you can get the exchange back of learning and growing.
Next, I don't want to interrupt you too long. I just want to give you a free offer for my book, The Blueprint to Financial Freedom. If you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, you can get the book now. I'm going to let you get back to the video.
Right? Finally, he gets into earning. And as we know, he gets into, obviously, earning. Then we get into triangle of wealth. We get into saving. We get into investing. And we get into generosity. Right? And I'm kind of skipping ahead with some of what's in the book, but I want to give you the full flow and sequence of what I'm seeing here. And what I've been teaching for many years is, if you study our blueprint to financial freedom, the checklist we go through with our clients, one of the first things we do is clarify your dream. Second thing we do, get to work. Third thing, get plugged in with our network, start meeting people, get out there, right? Now you're going to train. Now we're going to have you focus on growing your income and saving and investing and giving, and all this stuff comes into play, right? There's these 8 steps here, but this is the beginnings of it, right? And so we're seeing that he is in the literacy and education and the earning stage, and still as a kid. He's not earning big money. He's not by any means going to become a billionaire yet, right? But he's making this happen at the age of 13 years old. Right? Imagine where he's at when he's 18 compared to the normal 18-year-old kid you know today. Imagine, because of that, where he's at when he's 30 compared to the normal 30-year-old kid today. Right? Starting early on this stuff gives you a distinct advantage. And if you're, the thing I hear the most from people is, man, Jerry, I wish I would have learned this when they're talking to me about my business and what I do, which is, helping good people build more wealth who will make the world a better place. The building more wealth part, there's a lot of information I pass along and education I pass along to people. And I always hear, I wish I would have learned this earlier. I wish I would have started sooner. So 2 things I'm going to wrap up. If you have the sentiment of, I wish I would have started earlier, start now. You might not be 13 years old like Andrew Carnegie. Maybe you're 45, but 45 is better than 50. It's better than 55. It's better than 60. Start now. Knowing that, just like we looked at, you need to have your dream picked out. Why am I doing this? What's my purpose? What's my goal? What's the vision? What am I creating? And then you need to be willing to put the work in, because guys, this is work. This residual income financial freedom thing is work, and you're going to compress 40 to 50 years of work into 10 years. You're not doing less work. You're doing the same work. Let me communicate this. You are going to do the same volume of work. You're going to put it into 10 years instead of 50 so that you get to own the next 40. Not that you're not going to do the same work. You will do the same. It will just be over a smaller period of time, which means for the next 10 years, this is what you're going to do. This is your game. This is your focus. You're not doing other stuff. You're not focused on other stuff. Why? Because you're not free yet. If you live in the prison, you can focus on two things, Taco Tuesday or digging a hole, right? And if you're not able to do all the stuff you want to do in your life, to some degree, you're in prison. You're not free. Freedom means that I can actually go do the things I want to do. I'm free to things. I'm freedom to travel. I have freedom to eat organic. I have freedom to live where I want to live. I have freedom to help people, right? And if I'm not there and I'm economically restricted, screw Taco Tuesday. I need to dig the tunnel and get out of the prison. Then I can go enjoy probably better tacos than I've ever thought existed because I've been living in a prison. Okay, so that's my first thing. Start now. Second thing, if you have the sentiment of I should have started this sooner, start your kids now. And a lot of parents, and this is all marketing, again, so much of our financial knowledge is programmed. A lot of parents are well-intentioned, and with their kids, they think start now means I'm going to set up a savings account for them, and I'm going to put my money into it. And then I'm going to give that to them when they're older. That is not how life works. Okay, start now means have your kids start working. Have them start meeting people. Enhance their learning, bump it up a notch, get past, the normal things that they're reading and learning and watching and most kids are doing, and get them into more advanced things, right? Get them to the point where they can earn, and then teach them to save their own, right? It's give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish. Teach them to fish. Okay, because under no positive scenario as an adult is there going to be some higher power that sets money aside for them and gives it to them. That's called poverty with government subsidies is what that's called. You got to see what you're training them to expect. And so if starting early, you're saying, no, start early means, getting them to see what their future is going to look like, getting them to work, getting them to meet people and get out of their shell, getting them to learn stuff that they wouldn't otherwise be interested in or exposed to so they can expand their horizons so that they can earn their income and do the saving thing themselves. It's so much more relevant when it's their own money, right? That's what starting early should mean. So guys, that's been our Finance Friday this week. Again, we're still in the childhood of Andrew Carnegie, but it's been eye-opening for me just with this little bit of his life. We've got so much more to go. I hope you enjoy the summary. Again, Gospel of Wealth and Andrew Carnegie's autobiography. We're not even into the Gospel of Wealth part yet. We're still in the autobiography. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.
Hey, this is Jerry Fetta here. I want to thank you for watching my video, watching my content. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to learn more about the Blueprint to Financial Freedom and how you can achieve passive income that exceeds your savings, your expenses, your taxes, your generosity, and build wealth like the top 1%, I want to encourage you, grab a copy of my book, The Blueprint to Financial Freedom. You can go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, or you can click the link in the description of the video here. The copy is free. You cover your shipping. We'll send the book out to you, and we'll send you an email with a bunch of great bonus material also for free. Get the book, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on my next content.